Heading the unit is Dr. John Stevenson, who comes from New Zealand with worldwide experience of community problems, including those in mining and industry. Though he's been in the job only a week, already he's identifying key issues that need to be tackled. Apart from coordinating existing services, he sees his job as investigating communicable diseases and studying potential dangers around us.
And a major part of the environmental health scene, if you like, is the question of chemicals, how they're used, how they're disposed of, how they're transported, and whether indeed there is a risk in a particular circumstance to human health.
Today was a chance for him to meet some of the Hunter's health professionals. From now on, he'll be making contact with a wealth of community groups from the Hunter and the Central Coast. Last year's outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Newcastle, the trauma following last December's earthquake, and the increasing incidence of AIDS and hepatitis B are subjects that Dr. Stevenson and his team of 10 intend to investigate, eventually painting a clear picture of risk groups with the overall aim of protecting the health of the region.
The Vandals launched their attack at about 11 o'clock last night, smashing an office window of the Maitland Hyundai dealership on Newcastle Road and ransacking the place, apparently looking for cash. When they failed to find that, they re-entered the car yard and went on a rampage of destruction. A roof rack torn from a nearby car was used to smash windows, headlights and taillights on more than a dozen cars. Many vehicles suffered more damage as the Vandals ripped out radios and other components. Dealership principal Diana Felton says the destruction could have been worse if a security guard hadn't interrupted the proceedings.
The security guard was across the road at the Toyota dealership and he came across and, as I understand it, they threw a radio at him and ran away.
Detectives examined the vehicles and office for fingerprints and took samples for a number of blood spots left at the scene. They say the security guard was able to give them good descriptions of the offenders and they're anxious to speak to a number of people. Insurance assessors have spent much of the day itemising the damage. A spokesman for the car yard says the total repair bill will exceed $20,000. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Cardiff Workers Management hopes within 3 years to convert this 300-lot car park into a 63-unit retirement village. By the mid-90s, it's planned this vacant lot will be transformed into a 3-storey motel with restaurant and conference centre.
We've wanted to become more of a community centre and we've wanted to develop a total package where we have members from 18 right through to past retirement age.
Pending council approval, more than $20 million of improvements are planned for the club. Management research has shown a need in the area for both the retirement village and motel, and already investors have shown interest in the projects. In the meantime, council has approved $2.8 million worth of extensions for the club. The poker machine room will be enlarged and a new floor added for an administration centre and sports bar. Work is expected to begin later this year. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Played on an ideal Aussie rules ground, Hawkins Oval at Wickham, the match had all the excitement a final should. Cardiff established its dominance in the third quarter and then withstood solid defence by Warners Bay to take out the game. The tackling was ferocious but fair, and Warners Bay was developing good drive out of the centre but could not capitalise with goals. The final score, Cardiff 9-11-65 to Warners Bay 7 goals 9-51. Today's win equals the local scorecard, with each side now capturing the trophy 7 times since the inception of the competition back in 1972. The Lions Cup is a statewide comp for high schools, organised by the New South Wales Australian Football League. Cardiff now goes on to play the entrance in a quarter-final next week, with the winner of that match up against the winner of the Sydney section. The Vice-President of the Warners Bay Lions Club, Alan Mear, was on hand to present the trophy to Cardiff captain Daniel Ogle, to cheers all around for another successful Lions Cup season in the Hunter.
It's less than 2 years since John Cain beat the odds and won a third term for his Labor government, but the triumph was short-lived. And today the Premier looked a broken man. 2 months ago, Mr Cain had told a Victorian ALP conference he would lead Labor into the next state election, but there was a proviso.
I'll not go as leader until I feel that I can't make any contribution as leader of this government, or the party doesn't give to me the loyalty and commitment and discipline that I've mentioned before.
He went to see the state governor last night and again today to say he was not getting that loyalty. And at a caucus meeting this morning, he told stunned Labor MPs he'd had enough. Mr Cain was close to tears at the news conference. Leadership speculation fed by party members, he said, was colouring everything. The beginning of the end for Mr Cain was the disastrous tram strike that blocked Melbourne's streets during the Christmas holiday period. A series of financial disasters, culminating in the Pyramid Building Society collapse, sealed his fate. When Labor lost 9 Victorian seats in the March federal election, the Prime Minister and others were quick to lay the blame at John Cain's door.
The handling of the economy down there has been less than perfect.
As lobbying begins to decide a successor to Mr Cain, Labor in Victoria hits a record low of 29% in a new Morgan Gallup poll in tomorrow's Bulletin magazine.
Preparing for the small community of Bajerabong to go under, the army began to evacuate the town. Volunteers from Forbes who'd come to help with sandbagging were first to leave. At the levees, locals determined to save their properties worked through the night with police from the Flood Rescue Squad. But at isolated homesteads along the Lachlan floodplain, rescue efforts intensified today. Scott Brown has been cut off for more than a week. This army supply drop brought his first meal for 4 days. So you're pleased that they brought you in some supplies?
Oh my word, yeah. Worth a lot. Bit of tugger.
One of the unsung heroes of this whole operation, a local volunteer pilot, Don Hodge. Using his own helicopter, Don has guided rescue teams evacuating scores of properties in and around Forbes.
I don't mind doing this for the town.
In Forbes itself, residents are starting to add up their losses. Many are hoping after 9 floods this year, this one will be their last.
These are the Australian warships that could soon be on patrol in the Persian Gulf if Washington approves a Pentagon proposal for a special Allied naval presence in the Middle East. Under the plan, Australia would join US, Soviet, British and French combat units in a show of strength in the potential war zone. The naval force would go into action if the trade embargo against Iraq needs to be enforced. This development comes as fears increase for Australians caught up in the crisis.
Do you know where they are in the hotels in Kuwait?
Tony Masters has spent a lot of time searching for his 70-year-old mother. Erica Masters had the bad luck to be on a plane that landed for refuelling as the invasion took place. 2 other Australians were also on the flight, but only one of them has been identified. Canberra businessman Anthony Horden was last seen being driven away from Kuwait airport by Iraqi soldiers. The Foreign Affairs Department in Canberra is relying on the British Embassy in Kuwait to contact Australians still in the city. All outside phone lines are still cut. Iraq's ambassador to Australia appeared distinctly uncomfortable this afternoon when he was quizzed on the whereabouts and the safety of the Australians in Iraqi-controlled territory.
We've all got the same question.
No, I shall not
Tell us about
answer.
the Australians you've taken prisoner and what are you going to do with them?
They are safe. They are safe.
shoppers at Garden City are being treated to a feast of musical and dramatic entertainment this week, provided by the Schools of the Hunter. As part of Education Week, the Department of Education decided to bring school activities out of the classroom and into the eyes of the public to remind the community education means more than just reading, writing and arithmetic. This morning's performance was by the Maitland Public School Band, which had even the youngest members of the audience getting into the groove. The entertainment will continue until the end of the week. It's been a tough year for the residents of Courtman Hall for the Aged in Newcastle. Since their quarters were devastated by the earthquake, some have been living in the Ambassador Hotel in the city and others in the nurses' quarters at Stockton Hospital. They were together again, although briefly, at this luncheon at the Broadmeadow Racecourse.
They have lost their sense of community and that really upsets them. That's why they're enjoying themselves today, getting back together again.
The strain of the past months has taken its toll, with 7 residents having passed away.
Undoubtedly, the earthquake and the trauma of all the moves since and the uncertainty has contributed to the loss of some of our people.
It was smiles all round as they were reunited with friends. For many, it was their first outing since being forced from the damaged hostel. Hopefully, they will return to Courtman Hall when repairs are completed next month.
Lisa Pavan and husband Greg Horsman both dance with the Australian Ballet. So too does Lisa's childhood dancing companion, fellow Newcastle girl Elizabeth Toohey. The company's performances of Giselle and Spartacus had already received adulation from London and Moscow audiences, but New Yorkers are notoriously picky. They'd already given the Bolshoi Ballet a cool reception at the Met, and the Australians were understandably anxious about how they would be received. Speaking on the midday show before their departure, Lisa and Greg said the Russians were very different from the Australians.
The Russians' training is very much into the technique and into getting all, the things correct, whereas we tend to bypass that and try to project a little bit more, and it comes out sort of being a little bit more athletic.
The Australian Ballet was just what the New Yorkers wanted to see. Reviewers heaped praise on Lisa and Greg, while Elizabeth also was singled out for mention. Speaking by telephone from the US, Lisa Pavan said the company's opening night concluded with more than 20 curtain calls.
It was amazing. We just kept going back out, and the audience just wouldn't go home, even when the lights had come up in the auditorium, which usually signals for everybody, it's time to go. They just wouldn't leave, and afterwards being sort of absolutely mauled by people outside the stage doors wanting autographs and photos to be taken. It's really quite wonderful.
The Australian Ballet Tour included Washington and is now in California, where the tour concludes this weekend. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Waratah overran Nelson Bay in last week's minor semi-final to make their way to the preliminary final, while Western Suburbs were seconds from clinching a place in this year's grand final. But a spur-of-the-moment indiscretion by captain coach Mal Graham sees them fighting for survival this week.
I just took the percentages into effect. We're 1 point in front at that stage. They'd stretched us down the left-hand touchline, and I was 90% sure that they would have scored a try. So I just had to hope that Peter Walsh missed the goal.
A physical and health education teacher in Goanna country at Cessnock High, Graham has had plenty of time and help from his students to forget about last Saturday against Lakes and focus on the battle ahead with Waratah.
The job at task is Waratah on Sunday at Waratah Oval. It's definitely going to be a hard battle, and I'm sure Waratah will be striving to get there to meet Lakes, but it's up to us to make sure it's West instead of Waratah.
Craig Higgins' bosses at the Newcastle Permanent may have to forgive the nuggety 5'8" for having his mind on two interests this week, one that is dropping and the other the hoodoo of the Rosellas.
I think the luck's got to go our way sooner or later. They've had all the luck. They've had a few bounces of the balls, but then again, I suppose good teams make their own luck. And we're just hoping maybe this week we'll get a little bit of luck and we can come home with the points.
If you're good enough to make the semis, every player in the opposing side has to be a danger. But Higgins singles out one West player for special mention.
Because you can't really plan around them, and we'll just have to watch Neil Baker. He's probably their main strength. With his kicking game, he's a very big danger.
With West the glamour side of the competition and Waratah the poor relations, both coaches have their own views as to why their team should be the ones to meet Lakes on August the 19th.
We've got to strive to get into the grand final. We've put in all the hard work this year. I think we deserve to be in the grand final against Lakes. Just 1 minute of the game last week and we would have been there. But now we've got to do it the hard way and I'm sure we'll do it.
Well, I suppose we've been like the North Sydney, really, of Newcastle Rugby League for a few years now. But the club, we bought young players and I think the club's on the way up now, and to get them to the grand final, I'd be really rapt. It'd be great.
The latest target of the smash and grab spree was Gentlemen's Outfitters in the Hunter Mall. Thieves threw a brick through the store window and helped themselves to 8 jackets on display. 2 others were damaged when they were trampled into shards of broken glass lying in the window case. It's thought the jackets are worth more than $5,000. The figure could have been much higher. Once inside the store, the thieves attempted to snatch dozens more hanging on racks, but were thwarted by security precautions. Other stores in the Newcastle area weren't so fortunate. On Tuesday morning, thieves smashed the window of this Hunter Street duty-free shop, stealing half a dozen Gucci watches. A clothing boutique on King Street was also robbed on the same morning. Dozens of new season fashions were taken bearing the Esprit label. Police have had one success with the arrest of a 19-year-old man on Wednesday morning for another smash and grab, but they say they will continue to concentrate on a spate of similar offences.
Yes, it's like any situation like this. We do start to utilise our resources to combat this type of crime or any similar type of crime that starts to occur on a regular basis.
Meanwhile, business operators can only wonder who'll be next. David McElwain says last night's robbery wasn't a complete surprise.
Well, with all the hype that's, we hear about it and read about it in the paper, we're a prime target, with the quality leather jackets that we have and the amount that we carry too. So I was waiting for it to happen, yes.
This time, however, the thieves may have made one serious mistake. The leather jackets on sale at Gentlemen's Outfitters are of a distinctive design not used by any other retailer. Even if the John Palermo labels are removed, the jackets have a unique cut which makes them readily identifiable. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
For the next 3 hours, Charmaine Weeks and Duncan Grant will enjoy an unlimited supply of beer and wine and a fine gourmet dinner. But there's a catch. Every hour they'll undergo a breath test on this state-of-the-art infrared analyser now being trialled by New South Wales Police. It'll replace the old standard light breathalyzer used extensively until now. Well, Charmaine, how many drinks have you had now?
2 and 2 sips.
And how do you feel?
Quite merry, actually. I drive.
You would drive at this stage after 2 drinks?
Yeah.
All right, Duncan, how many beers have you had so far?
Just over 2 beers.
And you're drinking what, a standard midi glass, is it?
Yeah, I've had 2 cans of Foster's. I thought I was just slightly mellow and, quite happy to drive home, no problems, but a bit surprising.
That's the first surprise for the evening. The first 2 drinks have put both Charmaine and Duncan just below the legal driving limit of 0.05. One more drink in the first hour and they stand a real risk of going over.
Police began at 4 o'clock yesterday morning, pulling trucks to the side of the road and expecting them for a range of traffic offences. Yesterday, a total of 200 vehicles came under police scrutiny and 40 were found in breach of transport regulations. Police say they are pleasantly surprised by the result, but also say they expect the figures will rise significantly as the operation continues through the week.
Seated at his desk in the heart of the NIB building, Tom Locker looks all business. But today, more than any other, his thoughts are on cricket. The man who was instrumental in bringing first-class Sheffield Shield cricket to Newcastle will tonight declare his innings closed after 40 years with the District Association. In his time, he's seen hundreds of great players, but the Shield games are still the highlight.
The matches have been successful, they've been profitable. In modesty, they've been well organised, and the New South Wales Cricket Association have been delighted with the efforts of our administration in Newcastle.
It will be up to his successor to ensure first-class cricket returns to the city when the earthquake-damaged facilities at the #1 sports ground are rebuilt or replaced. As for Tom, well, he'll be enjoying his time on the hill, just another spectator at last.
I'd like to lead a quiet life and enjoy the cricket. I'll go to cricket every Saturday after tonight.
Senior police from patrols throughout the North region gathered this morning for their most important quarterly meeting of the year. They were told the region's present road toll of 154 deaths is a dramatic improvement on previous levels, but on projected figures, the end-of-the-year total could be 250 dead. Police are preparing for a particularly bad time on the roads in October.
It's a bad month, and of course it's a little bit worse this year because we've got the October long weekend, we've got the school holidays, and of course we've got the whole of October. And virtually we're looking at 3 weekends. We've got when they leave for the school holidays, we've got the holiday weekend, then when they return.
Police plan to publicise the danger with the help of the Roads and Traffic Authority, as well as continuing a recent practice of moving Highway Patrol police out of Sydney to reinforce northern holiday destinations. Police say they're looking to the community for support of road safety campaigns, and among the guests of the meeting was Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Ivan Welsh, and Transport Workers Union Executive Steve Hutchison. Mr Hutchison said truckies are undergoing a barrage of road blitzes, but he says they shouldn't direct their hostility towards the police.
But it certainly is a government directive, and they're the ones that are picking on the truckies.
He says the TWU is conducting a wages and hours campaign which will eliminate some of the unreasonable work practices which in turn have led to road safety problems.
It puts a lot of pressure on a owner-driver and employee-driver to be seen to possibly cut corners or put into a position where if he doesn't drive a particular vehicle then he could face the sack.